translate tool. So in today's class, let's discuss about what is a Selenium, why we are going for Selenium, what are all the various advantages and components available in Selenium, in detail about each and every component, and what are all the concepts we are going to discuss in our daily classes, and how this duration is, everything we are going to discuss in our today's class. So for which, so let's start with introduction. So generally, Selenium is a tool which is used to automate any kind of web-based applications. Okay, in order to automate any kind of a web-based applications, we are going for this Selenium tool. Okay, using Selenium, we can automate any kind of a web-based application, and that too, Selenium is an open source tool. So what does it mean? Open source tool means. So Selenium is an open source tool means we can simply download this software from Selenium official website for free of cost. We no need to pay even a single rupee to download this software and to work on this particular software. We can download this software for free of cost, and we can automate any kind of our applications using this Selenium tool. Okay, that's fine. So what are all the various advantages of this tool? Why nowadays majority of the organizations are preferring this tool to automate their applications? The first and a major advantage is an open source itself. Open source is a major advantage. The reason is basically, as it is an open source tool, organization no need to invest on the tool. They can simply invest on the resources who are working on a project. Hence, the organization cost is getting reduced with this particular tool. So hence, open source is the first and a major advantage. And the second major advantage is it supports record and a playback feature. So what does it mean? So record and a playback feature is, example, in our mobile phones, we used to have either a audio recorder or else a video recorder, right? So in our mobile phones, we used to have either a audio recorder or else a video recorder. So what it will happen, whenever we clicked on a record button, it will capture either audio or a video, and whenever we clicked on a stop recording, it will be stored in mobile gallery. And whenever we want, we can play back from the gallery itself, right? We can play back from the gallery itself. This is how it's been performing the actions. The same way here, the record and a playback feature will support on browser. So it means whatever the actions we are performing on the browser, for those actions my Selenium will record the script, and even it will play back those actions on the same browser itself. Okay, my Selenium will perform the record operation on a browser, and it will perform the playback on a same browser itself. And another major advantage is multiple programming languages. What does it mean? If I know any one of the programming languages, okay, if I know any one of the programming languages, I can write my Selenium code. So it means there is no specific restriction that we need to learn only one programming language like .NET, or else we need to know like a Java programming language to write down the program, something like that. If at all we are familiarized with any one of the programming languages, then we can write down our Selenium codes. Okay, if at all we are familiarized with any one of the programming languages, then we can write down our Selenium code. That's another major advantage. And another advantage of this particular tool is multiple browser support. Whatever the test case we have prepared, we can execute it across any other browsers like IE, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, across any browsers. Whatever the script we have prepared, we can run it across any browsers. That's another major advantage for this particular tool. Okay, that's another major advantage for this particular tool. That's fine. So the another advantage for this tool is it supports cross browser, cross OS, and as well as a load testing tool. Okay, cross browser, cross OS, and as well as a load testing tool. So these are all the major advantages for this particular tool. Even though it's an open source tool, it is supporting these many advantages. That's the reason nowadays majority of the people are preferring this tool. That's fine. So far we discussed about the advantages. Whether this tool is having any disadvantages or not. Of course, this tool is having some disadvantages. The disadvantages for this particular tool are, okay, so let me list down the disadvantages for this particular tool. The first one is an open source tool. See, if you observe the advantages, we consider advantage. It's an open source tool as an advantage. Again, here we are considering open source as a disadvantage. The reason is basically, whenever we are automating an application, if we struck at a point means we can't okay get, or else we didn't get any proper support from Selenium team. Okay, so as it is an open source tool, whenever we struck at a particular point means we didn't get any proper support from the Selenium people. Okay, we won't get any proper support from the Selenium people, which we can treat it as a disadvantage. And another disadvantage is a web-based applications. Okay, Selenium is a completely used to automate a web-based application. Immediately a simple question will rise in our mind. Whenever I am working on my applications, when I come across a couple of windows using Selenium, I can't handle that. For suppose in your browser you do have an option like clicking on a button which will open a pop-up where in which we need to give our information, okay, from our local machine, the path from our local machine. So which is a window based operation. So which is not at all possible using Selenium, as a Selenium is a completely used to automate a web-based applications. Whenever we are working on an application, if we come across a couple of windows, our execution is blocked at that point. So which we can call it as a limitation. That's fine. So how can we handle this? How can we handle this? Let me give you a small example. Assume that I have just a 2 GB of a free space in my machine. Okay, in my machine I have just a 2 GB of a free space, guys. If I would like to save 10 GB of movies in my machine, so is it possible for me to save that much of information? See, my machine is having just a 2 GB of a free space. It's not at all possible for me to save this much of information. Then what I can do, I will connect external hard disk and I will store the required information. Right? I will connect an external hard disk and I will store the required information to my machine. The same way here also. So it means external hard disk is having enough memory. We are storing the desired information to external hard disk, and whenever we want, we can connect the external hard disk and we will access the information from the hard disk itself. Okay, that's fine. This is how we are overcoming the memory limitation. The same way here also. By default, the Selenium doesn't support the window-based applications. Hence, we are adding a third-party tools to Selenium to handle window-based scenarios. Okay, in order to handle the window-based scenarios, we are adding a third-party tools like AutoIT, CQ, etc. So we are just adding these kind of a third-party tools to handle these kinds of an operations. That's fine. And coming to the open source limitation, we do have n number of Google groups are there from where we can get multiple solutions for all of our issues. Okay, we can get a multiple solutions for all of our issues. That's the point, guys. So here the conclusion point is, of course, the tool is having a limitations. We are just overcoming the limitation. Okay, we are just overcoming the limitations. Okay, so these are all the various advantages and disadvantages of this particular tool. Am I clear for everybody? Pomesh, Prashant, and Sunita, am I clear for you all? You can reply me in a chat window if at all you have any questions for me. Am I clear for everyone so far, the advantages and disadvantages? Okay. Sunita, is this clear for you too? Fine. Done. So done up to here. So you can use the chat window, okay, to just address any questions also. Just use the chat window. Fine. Done up to here. So far we have seen about advantages and disadvantages of these two. The another point is components available in Selenium. Okay, so what are all the various components we have in this particular tool? So the Selenium is having a 4 different flavors or components. One is a Selenium IDE. The second one is a Selenium RC, which we can treat it as a 1.0 version. The third one is a WebDriver, which we can treat it as a 3.0 version. And the last one is a Selenium Grids. IDE, RC, WebDriver, and a Grids. Each and every component in Selenium is having its own advantages. Okay, so each and every component is having its own advantages. Let's see now. Moving to IDE. IDE supports record and playback a feature on Firefox browser. Selenium IDE supports a record and a playback a feature specifically on a Firefox browser itself. Okay, Selenium IDE supports a record and a playback a feature specifically on a Firefox browser. So as it is an add-on to Firefox browser. So it means if you observe using Selenium IDE, whatever the actions we are performing on a Firefox browser alone, we can perform record and playback also on a Firefox browser. Coming to the limitations of Selenium IDE, as we discussed that Selenium supports a multiple programming language, whereas IDE is working specifically to the Firefox browser, which we can treat it as a limitation of IDE. Okay, which we can treat it as a limitation of Selenium IDE. And another limitation is, as it is a plugin to the browser, we can't implement conditional and looping statements to IDE. Okay, we can't implement any kind of a conditional statements like if, for loop, while loop, all those things we can't implement in Selenium IDE, which is another limitation. And another major limitation is after execution of the scripts, it won't generate any test execution results like how many got executed, how many got passed, and how many got a failed. Such kind of a report it won't generate. This is another major limitation of IDE. See, as IDE contains these major limitations, the majority of the people are not using IDE in their real time. Okay, majority of the people are not using IDE in a real time. But few people will use IDE to simplify their tasks in their day-to-day testing activities. So what exactly this means? How can few people use this one in their day-to-day activities? For suppose, let me give you a small example for that. We need to report a bug. In order to report a bug using a bug reporting tool, roughly there are around 15 fields are there which we need to fill up to submit a bug. okay, which we need to fill up to submit a bug. There are 15 fields are there, out of which only 3 fields will change bug to bug. Okay, so like the description, the title and the screenshot, these 3 only will change from bug to bug. The remaining 12 fields are one and the same. If I need to submit these, fill these 12 fields manually, it requires 8 minutes for me to fill the form. And the remaining 3 fields, roughly it needs around 12 minutes to me to fill a form. Whereas if I use the Selenium IDE as a help, I can fill all the 12 fields within 2 minutes and the remaining 3 fields in another 3 minutes. Hence, I can create a bug within 5 minutes using IDE. Okay, so what I am doing, these 12 fields are common, right? So for these 12 fields, I have recorded my script in IDE, and whenever I need to submit a bug, I will simply play back that one. Automatically all the 12 fields will be populated by my IDE, and roughly it consumes less time for us to fill the form. Okay, roughly it consumes a very less time for us to fill the form. That's the reason altogether we are finishing the bug within 5 minutes. So this is the reason where majority of the people will use the Selenium IDE. So even though they are working on their tasks, in order to simplify their task, they are using IDE. Okay, am I clear for everybody till now, or do you people have any questions? Paumesh, Prashant and Sunita, is this clear for you three so far? Fine. Done up to here. So the another point is, okay, so far we discussed about the IDE and its limitations and how few people are using this IDE. Later, moving on to Selenium RC, if you clearly observe, we mentioned it as a version 1.0 and a WebDriver we mentioned it as a 2.0 version. Okay, RC as a version 1.0 and a WebDriver as a 2.0 version. It means, see here, for suppose, see these versions controlling we usually give for any kind of a documents whatever we are preparing. Right, whatever the documents we are preparing, we usually give versions to those documents. Okay, so here version 1.0, it's an initial version. Version 2.0, it's a later version. So the first one I can compare it with Apple i4 version, Apple iPhone 4 version, and the second one I am comparing with Apple i5. Both i4 and i5 are Apple mobiles itself. There exist some differences between these two. For suppose i4 is having some limitations. In order to address those limitations, we are going for i5 mobile. Okay, i4 is having certain limitations. To address those certain limitations, we are going for i5. It means both i4 and i5 both are Apple mobiles itself, but there exists a small differences between either the specifications, the OS versions and the configuration given and the price. There are too many factors there comes into between these two. The same way RC and a WebDriver both are one and the same, but there exists some difference between these two, RC and a WebDriver. So what exactly the difference between RC and a WebDriver then? So what exactly the difference between RC and a WebDriver then? Okay, so what exactly the basic differences between RC and a WebDriver then? So let me give you an idea about RC and a WebDriver. See, both RC and a WebDriver supports multiple programming languages and multiple browsers support. RC and a WebDriver supports multiple programming languages and as well as multiple browsers. So what exactly the difference between these two? Among all these programming languages, we are choosing Java as our programming language. We are choosing Java as our programming language to write down our programs. Even though you don't know about the Java programming languages concept, we are gonna discuss a Java programming language in part of our training itself. Okay, you no need to learn Java concepts separately. In part of our training itself, we are going to discuss the Java concepts. Okay, that's fine. In part of our training itself, we are going to discuss the Java concepts. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Done up to here. Okay, so fine. So whatever the basic concepts required for us to work on this Java programming language, we are gonna cover that in part of our training only. That's fine. So the other point over here is multiple programming languages and as well as a multiple browsers. Out of this stuff, multiple programming languages and as well as a multiple browsers, Java is the language which we have chosen. That's fine. So immediately a simple question will rise in our mind. Let me show you a pictorial representation for that. See here. See. Assume that this is one end of a river and this is another end of a river. Okay, I'm making a note. Here, this is one end of a river. This is another end of a river. So I would like to move from one end of a river to another end. This person doesn't have any medium like a boats, steamer, or he don't know how to swim too. Okay, he don't know how to swim too. Don't know how to swim too. So he don't know all those things. Is it possible for him to move from one end of a river to another end of a river? Is it possible for this person to move from one end of a river to another end without these things? So it's not at all possible for him to move from one end of a river to another end. So if a person needs to move from one end of a river to another end, he must have any one of these three mediums. Then only he can move from one end of a river to another end. The same way here also. This is a Java programming language and here is a browser. In order to move from one end of a programming language to another end of a programming language, okay, one end of a programming language to a browser, we must have a mediator like a Selenium server. Selenium server is the one which acts like a mediator between the programming language and the browser. This one will help in executing the programs whatever we have written in Java in a browser. So Selenium server will help the executing the programs in the browser. Whatever the programs we have written in Java, these programs will be executed on a browser with the help of this Selenium server. So in RC, Selenium server is the one which plays a key role. Whereas moving on to WebDriver, it doesn't need any kind of an intermediate layer. The reason is WebDriver is a latest component of a Selenium which is having a capability to directly communicate with the browser. Okay, to directly communicate with the browser, we are going for this Selenium server. Okay, sorry, we are going for this WebDriver. WebDriver is the one which is having a capability to directly communicate with the browser. Okay, in order to directly communicate with the browser, we are going for WebDriver. So here, the basic difference between Selenium RC and a WebDriver is RC needs a Selenium server to communicate with the browser, and for WebDriver, Selenium server is not required. Okay, and a WebDriver, Selenium server is not required. So that's the difference between RC and a WebDriver. And there exist a few more differences between RC and a WebDriver, but the major differences between these two comes with the Selenium server itself. Okay, that's fine. So immediately a simple question will rise in our mind. How come it will execute on a browser, okay, without having a server? The WebDriver is having a capability to directly communicate with the browser. The WebDriver is designed in such a way that without having any medium, it can communicate with the browser. That's what the architecture of the WebDriver designed. That's fine. And the last component is a Selenium grid, which is used to perform cross-browser, cross-OS, and some kind of a load testing also can be done with the help of this Selenium grid. So these are all the various components available in our Selenium. Usually in our classes, we will be starting our sessions with IDE for about 5 to 6 classes, and we are gonna discuss about a Selenium RCE along with the Java concepts for 5 to 6 hours. And moving on to the WebDriver, we are gonna spend around 15 to 18 hours on a WebDriver along with the Java concepts. An introduction to Selenium Grid for about 1 or 2 hours we are gonna cover in part of our training. Altogether, the total duration for this training is 30 to 35 hours. Okay, so this is about our course, and even if you have a look into the course content which we have already shared to you, whatever the concepts we have listed in the content, and even almost all the concepts we are gonna cover with the real-time scenarios itself. Okay, with the real-time scenarios itself, every day we are going to discuss a couple of scenarios with an examples and how to write the programs. And after completion of the class, I will share the running notes. See, if you observe, I have prepared a running notes right now. After completion of the class, on a daily basis, I will share these running notes to you people so that you can have a look into the running notes. And even on a daily basis, I will give you the recording option so that you can record the session from your end. Okay, so that's the thing. And even after completion of the training, even we are gonna discuss about the framework related stuff, how we are gonna work on a project. Once we got a project, how we are gonna work on a project starting from the scratch also we are gonna cover in part of our training itself. Along with that, we are gonna have a mock interview related stuff based on your interest. If at all you people are interested to attend a mock interview, even we will be conducting the mock interview also. And simultaneously, you need to practice all the scenarios on a Salesforce application. Okay, whatever the concepts I am explaining in the classes, you can practice simultaneously on a Salesforce application. Okay, so this is all the thing, guys. Do you people have any specific questions for me, or is it clear for you all? Actually, Prashant, the thing happening over here is in my classes, I will be showing on a various kinds of an applications, some kind of a jQuery applications, and some scenarios I will explain on a Salesforce, and a few scenarios I will explain on a banking domain. So based on the scenarios, I will work on a multiple applications. Whereas for your practice, whatever the scenarios I am explaining on a various applications, so you need to practice it on a Salesforce, and you people need to come up with the questions. Even I will be explaining couple of scenarios on a Salesforce, but you people need to practice on the scenarios whatever I am explaining on a various apps along with the Salesforce. So it's completely up to your practice itself.
Okay, got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
fine. So that's the thing. And how can we practice on a Salesforce application? So even I will show you how can we create an account for the Salesforce developer art, where in which you can create an account for free and you can access that account for all of our concepts. Okay, that's fine. And any other questions, Prashant and Sunita? Cool, that's fine. So that's all I have. And even the only thing is, you need to attend the classes regularly and you need to practice the concepts regularly. If at all you are doing on all these things means, I can assure that at the end of the training you will be in a position to handle an interview on Selenium, and even you will be in a position to handle your project as well. But the only thing required is attending the classes regularly and practicing